A gente chegava no ônibus, o pessoal ficava assim.
É banho de perfume.
Eu cheguei ao ponto de dizer para uma senhora, vem cá, eu tô fedendo, tá sentindo mau cheiro? É porque eu estava trabalhando lá no lixão. É melhor do que se eu estivesse lá em Copacabana rodando bolsinho. Eu acho que é mais interessante, mais honesto, mais digno. Tô fedendo, mas chegar em casa, tomar um banho fica melhor. Mas é nojento.
Mas é dobrado.
É mole você estar sentado lá na tua casa, na frente da sua televisão, consumindo o que você quer, juntando seu lixinho lá e botar lá na rua porque o caminhão do lixo vai passar. Mas pra onde vai esse lixo?
It's really hard to describe Waste Land because it sounds like a load of rubbish, and it sort of is. It's a documentary about an art project in a rubbish dump with a bunch of people that live and work in a rubbish dump. And I don't know how to make that sound appealing, but somehow it's a brilliant, brilliant film, and it's won the Audience Award at Sundance and Berlin, loads of other places, and it's just doing really well, and it's being released here by Hopscotch, and it's here at the Sydney Film Festival, and it's really, when people see it, they fall in love with it. But how I persuade someone to go and see it, I just don't know how to describe it yet. So, but do see it, and then you can tell me how to describe it, because I don't know what to say. I have tackled nuclear weapons in Countdown to Zero, that's also coming out this year. And that's about proliferation and terrorism, and why nuclear weapons are a dangerous thing in the world today. And in Blind Sight, which was here at Sydney Film Festival in 2007, that's a story about a blind American mountaineer who climbs Everest, a blind German woman who opens the first school for the blind in Tibet, and 6 blind Tibetan teenage students who, when the blind American guy climbs Everest, write to him, and he's so moved by the letter, he comes back and takes them on their own mountain climb up Everest. And it all goes horribly wrong, and that's quite a story. And then my first feature documentary was called Devil's Playground, and that was 2002. And that is about Amish young people who, when they turn 16, have a period called Rumspringa, where they're sort of let free of the rules of being Amish, the very strict rules against TV and cars and music and clothes and pretty much everything, education, sports, travel, jobs, and get to experiment with the outside world, and then have to decide whether or not to come back and commit to being Amish as adults for the rest of their lives, and the sort of period of turmoil and experimentation that they experience trying to make that decision. So those are the 4 feature documentaries I've done. I've done TV and other stuff too, but those are the 4 big ones. I suppose there's a lovely point in my career suddenly where it's starting to look like it's not just one big disaster, and like that was all my crazy decisions maybe had something, that wasn't wrong about them or something. Because when you're experiencing this, you don't sort of think, oh, here I am making another good decision. You think, oh my God, here I am scrambling again. But it's amazing because for documentaries, 4 theatrical releases, 4 sets of awards, I'm really proud of all of them in their very different ways. And I think that the trick has just been to only really choose subjects that are really interesting. Because I see a lot of amazing filmmakers who just can't make a subject interesting enough if it's not. I mean, I always say you have to sort of start with a barrel that's got enough fish in it that whichever way you shoot, you're going to hit something. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know something interesting is going to happen. Or you don't know the answer to the question, but you know the question is so interesting that it doesn't matter what happens. You just want to find out. And I think that stood me in really good stead, is just following that gut instinct of, is it so interesting that you'll actually drop everything in your life and really commit to spending the years often that it takes to really do justice to a subject matter. I suppose I sort of think of myself as a filmmaker first and foremost, not so focused on the fiction or the non-fiction, although very lucky that I've experienced the success with these 4 non-fiction projects, and I've never made a feature fiction film. But I have made lots of short films and did train to do that and started out in theatre and sort of think of myself in terms of character and story and craft very much as sort of filmmaker first and foremost, and trained in all the same aspects that any fiction filmmaker would train in terms of story and using, you know, wonderful cinematography and sound effects or music, character emotion, character arcs, you know, all these plot points, twists, all these things. I think it's really important for the audience experience, if you're going to put it on a big screen, to really craft something with all these, you know, amazing cinema sort of craft aspects that are really creatively fun and really what the audience needs to make it a worthwhile sort of cinema experience. A couple that perhaps are quite directly in sort of inspirational for me are Hoop Dreams, the wonderful film, because I think that was for me the first film that I really saw following over a long period of time and quite how magical that can be. I guess 7 Up, the TV series when I was younger, I was obsessed with, and maybe that was the first time, but to see that in a sort of feature film documentary format with Hoop Dreams was super exciting, and the twists and turns in the young lives, I'm sure, was very inspirational without perhaps even consciously thinking about it, subliminally or subconsciously. I'm sure when I was making Devil's Playground, that idea of following young people through some tumultuous years and how much of a payoff you can get when you even see people physically change in front of your eyes when you watch a few years of some young people's lives unfold in a 90-minute format. Another slightly similar, bit more compressed of a timeline, but the same intensity of following young people through very dramatic times in their lives when you can really see everything that's going on is very real but very dramatic, because you can just feel these young lives sort of dangling in the balance, and that these events are really going to shape the whole rest of their lives. There's a film called Streetwise, which was a 1984 documentary about young homeless kids in the streets of Seattle, and I couldn't believe when I watched it that the camera was in the room with these kids who are sort of falling in love with each other and dumpster diving and breaking up with each other, and one of them dies, and all this stuff really happens in front of the camera, and you can't believe the access and the photography. Well, I'd always heard such fantastic things about Sydney Film Festival. It has this great reputation worldwide for just having a fantastic selection. And I think that Claire Stewart, the director of the film festival, I love that she chose, for example, the Cannes winners before they'd won at Cannes. You know, she'd spotted them. And I think her taste is sort of legend. And so it's really appealing to not just have Waste Land playing here, because it's such a lovely festival and a great jumping off point, and very exciting because we're so excited. Hopscotch is releasing the film later in the year, but it's the perfect sort of place for our Australian premiere, and I'm so thrilled to be here because I've always wanted to visit, and it's my first visit here too.
Melhor do que de dia, que tem menos gente. Melhor do que tá aí, ó, igual muitas aí, ó, se prostituindo. A gente tá trabalhando honestamente e tá ganhando o nosso.
Eu trabalho desde 7 anos. Eu tenho 18.